Happy Friday, everyone. Thanks for joining us on Business Daily. I'm Lee in Seoul. Let's get started with a glimpse of today's highlights. The Korea Blockchain Industry Association lays out measures to boost transparency in the cryptocurrency market by only allowing users to trade virtual currency through one account. President Moon is on day 3 of his China visit, and we take a look at what's on the agenda for today and how the two countries have decided to boost economic ties. These stories and more coming right up. Two days after the Korean government announced new regulations on virtual currency transactions, Korea's Blockchain Association has unveiled measures of its own. Our Kim Ji-yeon starts us off.
Korea's Blockchain Association unveiled measures on Friday to strengthen security measures that'll help protect investors' assets and increase transparency of the listing process of new virtual currencies. The measures make it mandatory for traders and financial institutions to keep investors' deposit money, and depositors will have to be verified face-to-face in order to deposit or withdraw cash. The association will also increase offline customer call centers and vow to strengthen employee ethics to regulate unfair transactions, as well as establish an independent committee on these measures. Business entities possessing more than $1.8 million of net capital or assets will be qualified to establish virtual currency exchanges starting next year. The move comes in response to government measures proposed earlier this week to curb speculation on cryptocurrencies and crack down on related crimes such as hacking and illegal foreign exchange transactions. These measures will also exclude minors and foreigners from opening investment accounts. Such measures come amid the growing craze over Bitcoin, which recovered to the $16,600 level a day after the government regulations were announced. There are lingering concerns of a bubble, with more than 1 million Koreans believed to hold at least some Bitcoin. Kim Ji-yeon, Business Daily.
Korea's annual trade volume has topped the $1 trillion mark for the first time since 2014. According to the Trade Ministry, Korea's combined imports and exports surpassed $1 trillion at around 2 p.m. on Thursday. Exports through to November jumped 16.5% on year to reach nearly $525 billion, driven by memory chips and petrochemicals. The value of Korean goods traded in the first 9 months of the year accounted for 3.3% of all global shipments, up from last year's 2.8%. Korea's trade volume exceeded the $1 trillion mark between 2010 and 2014, but has fallen short in the last 2 years. Korea is one of just 9 countries, including the U.S., China, and Germany, to ever reach $1 trillion in annual trade. President Moon Jae-in is now into day 3 of his state visit to China. Moon delivered a speech this morning at Peking University where he said Korea and China need to create a forward-looking strategic partnership to achieve lasting peace and prosperity in the region. He's set to meet shortly with key politicians, including Chinese Premier Li Keqiang, as well as Chang De-jang, the Standing Committee Chairman of the National People's Congress. President Moon will then travel to the city of Chungcheong, about 1,800 kilometers southwest of the capital, Beijing. Chungcheong is a site of historical significance for Korea as the site of the nation's provisional government during the Japanese occupation. It's also the linchpin of President Xi's economic policies as the hub of China's One Belt, One Road initiative. President Moon also met with business representatives from both countries, encouraging them to build a strong partnership and boost economic ties. Seoul and Beijing also agreed to launch FTA renegotiations, which will further open up the two sides' services sectors. Our Kim Hae-sung has more.
Around 170 Korean companies and 500 Chinese businesses gathered in Beijing to boost economic ties.
백음과 함께 어두운 과거는 날려버리고 중국과 한국의 관계가 더욱 굳건하게 맑은 향기로 채워질 수 있도록 우리 함께 노력합시다.
At the Korea-China Economic and Trade Partnership event Thursday, President Moon Jae-in called for a stronger economic partnership through closer people-to-people ties after a period of strained Seoul and Beijing ties over that. During the event, Korean companies and Chinese buyers held meetings to cooperate in areas such as consumer goods content and tourism. Since 2004, China has replaced the U.S. as Korea's #1 trading partner, accounting for around a quarter of Korea's trade in 2016. On Thursday, the two countries' trade ministries signed MOUs, including an agreement to start negotiations next month on the services and investment part of the Korea-China Free Trade Agreement that went into effect in 2015. MOUs in areas of energy, biotech, robots, and driverless cars were signed so both countries can save energy and prepare for the fourth industrial revolution. A high-level dialogue channel was established to iron out the details. During President Moon's visit, the two countries' businesses also signed 19 MOUs Thursday to boost cooperation in trade, industry, and energy. Kim Hae-sung, Business Daily.
Prime Minister Lee Nak-yeon met with Korean and foreign business executives today to share ideas on creating a fair, inclusive, and transparent economy. During the luncheon meeting, Prime Minister Lee promised a swift regulatory reform to spur innovation and boost economic growth. He also added that conglomerates must play a key role in fostering a fair economic ecosystem and promoting a more socially responsible corporate culture. The business leaders promised to lead Korea's growth in the fourth industrial revolution through R&D investment in renewable energy, self-driving cars, smart factories, and the bio industry. Let's now get a check on how the markets fared here in Seoul today. For that, we have our Lee Ju-young on the line for us. Ju-young.
Hi, June. The benchmark Kospi rebounded from yesterday's quadruple witching day that set the main bourse tumbling down to the 2460 level. At the closing bell, the benchmark Kospi inched up 0.51% and at 2482.07. The junior Kosdaq also ended higher, up 0.19% at 771.82. On the foreign exchange counter, the Korean won weakened to 1,089.81 against the greenback. Quadruple witching refers to the simultaneous expiration of contracts for stock futures and options that usually causes volatile trading. Large institutions which offloaded shares on Thursday reverted to net buyers today. They picked up roughly $387 million worth of net shares and underpinned the wider bourse. In terms of large-cap stocks, Samsung Electronics and SK hynix were the only shares to post losses among the Kospi's top 10 listings by market cap. Samsung Electronics lost 0.86%, while SK hynix ended 0.39% lower.
And it's Christmas soon, and toy makers have been making notable gains in the market. Tell us more about this.
That's right. Expectations of an increase in toy sales are leading to a surge in their share prices. For one, Korea Exchange says several local toy companies, including Sonogong and Aurora, have seen their share prices surge nearly 30% in the fourth quarter. Experts say Aurora in particular, which is heavily dependent on toy exports to the U.S., say improving consumer sentiments in the world's largest economy is highly likely to reflect itself in the form of improved earnings in the fourth quarter. This has been Lee Ju-young for Business Daily.
Just in time for the new year ahead, the Korean government has come up with a new blueprint for its future energy policies. The main idea is to gradually phase out the country's reliance on conventional energy, such as nuclear power and coal, and gradually turning to renewable sources. Our Lee Jung-yeon reports.
Korea's Energy Ministry announced on Thursday its new energy roadmap for the next 12 years, in line with the worldwide trend of turning to renewable energy. The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy announced its 8th basic plan for long-term electricity supply and demand, which will run from this year until 2031. It stated in a press release that the ministry is shifting focus from prioritizing stable power supply and economic efficiency to focusing on environmental and safety issues. The nation will reduce its heavy reliance on nuclear and coal power plants and increase its proportion of plants that use renewable energy and liquefied natural gas. The goal by 2030 is to raise the ratio of renewable energy to 20% by increasing the use of solar and wind power plants. Currently, there are 24 active nuclear power plants producing 30% of the nation's electricity, but according to the nuclear phase-out plan, this number will be reduced to 18. According to the plan, greenhouse gas emissions will be reduced by 26% from the current average, and fine dust levels will also be cut by 62%. This new energy policy reflects safety concerns following the Fukushima incident in Japan in 2011 and the two major earthquakes over the last 2 years in the southeast of Korea. The ministry will finalize its plans at a public hearing on December 26th. Lee Jung-yeon, Business Daily.
The global market for OLED screens used in smartphones surged 30% in the third quarter from the same period last year. According to market researcher IHS Markit on Thursday, OLED sales reached $4.7 billion in the July to September period, up 29% on year. It attributes the jump to a swell in demand for OLED panels used by Samsung, which dominates 98% of the market. The trend is expected to continue due to the possibility of Chinese firms using OLED screens in their upcoming smartphones. Sales of imported cars here in Korea have remained strong despite controversies following a series of emission scandals. With the end of the calendar year approaching, foreign automakers are looking to ramp up sales by introducing new SUVs. Here's our Elliot Kim with more.
When this car's back seats are folded, there's more than enough space for 4 suitcases. It's a new large SUV released by French manufacturer Peugeot, aimed at consumers who like long road trips or outdoor activities like camping. Price-wise, it's around the same level as its Korean competitors.
As the culture of family leisure evolves, there has been more demand for SUVs.
Foreign automakers have been launching new models ahead of the new year. Imported vehicles are looking to take a 15% share of the Korean market in 2 years. And these new cars could be a way to drive sales in a generally slow winter period. With consumer demand for SUVs on the rise, model diversity has increased alongside a growing number of eco-friendly engine options. Mercedes-Benz, the most popular foreign automaker in Korea, is introducing a mid-sized GLC hybrid SUV that has both electric and gas-powered motors. BMW is hot on Mercedes' heels, launching the third-generation X3, a model that's sold over 1.6 million units worldwide since it was first introduced in 2003.
Because the X3 has X-Drive, it's appealing for customers worried about safe driving conditions during the winter, which should help winter sales.
The other competitors aren't resting on their laurels either. Lexus has done a mid-generation refresh on its NX SUV, and there are rumors of an impending refresh of the country's top-selling auto import of the past 2 years, the Volkswagen Tiguan. Despite these successes, foreign automakers will have to overcome consumer doubts surrounding their emissions levels and quality issues. Elliot Kim, Business Daily.
North Korea's economy seems to have improved last year, according to the latest data from Statistics Korea. The communist country's nominal gross national income was estimated at $33.3 billion last year, up nearly 4% compared to a year earlier. Now, despite the improvements, it was still 45 times smaller than that of South Korea's. North Korea's population stood at 24.9 million last year, while South Korea had a population of over 51 million. In terms of trade volume, Seoul's total imports and exports were tallied at $902 billion compared to North Korea's $6.5 billion. The U.S. Federal Communications Commission has voted to end net neutrality rules that guaranteed equal access to the internet. Now, it will take some time to see the changes, but the political and legal battle to challenge the decision has already begun. Our Park Se-young tells us more.
The Federal Communications Commission has killed net neutrality, at least for now. The 3-2 vote is a radical departure from more than a decade of federal oversight and gives more power to internet service providers like AT&T and Comcast to control what consumers can access on the web.
The tough net neutrality rules put in place 2 years ago during the Obama administration prevented internet providers from blocking traffic and charging for higher quality service. The new rules allow internet providers to block and prioritize content as they wish, as long as they publicly state they're going to do so.
It is time for the internet once again to be driven by engineers and entrepreneurs and consumers, rather than lawyers and accountants and bureaucrats.
It'll take the Commission a few weeks to finalize the rules, but the fight to save net neutrality began immediately. Protesters gathered outside the FCC's building ahead of the vote to oppose what they call a move that will make the internet less open and accessible. New York Attorney General Eric Schneiderman, a Democrat, said in a statement he will lead a multi-state lawsuit to challenge the reversal to the 2015 regulations. White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders told reporters that the Trump administration supports the FCC's efforts, but at the same time supports a free and fair internet. Park Se-young, Business Daily.
Time now for a look through some important global business news from the week. And for that, we turn to our Eunice Kim, who joins us in the studio today. Hello, Eunice.
Hello.
All right, so the mega media deal that you alluded to last week has been inked. Disney is buying most of 21st Century Fox in an acquisition said to be worth some eye-watering $66 billion.
That's right. The Fox is in the Mickey Mouse house, June. The deal looked even more likely earlier this week when Comcast dropped out of the bid. Not only is this Walt Disney's biggest purchase to date, it also marks a watershed moment for both Bob Iger and Australian-born media mogul Rupert Murdoch in a swiftly changing media landscape. Take a look. Star Wars: The Last Jedi may be exciting moviegoers this week, but for Walt Disney CEO Bob Iger, things just got a lot bigger. After on-and-off discussions sparked back in October, the Disney boss has struck a deal with media empire builder Rupert Murdoch to take on much of his 21st Century Fox assets that spans nations. It is by far the largest buyout by Disney to date. Iger has never been one to shy away from buying content since becoming CEO in 2005, picking up Pixar, Marvel, and Lucasfilm, the studio behind the lucrative Star Wars franchise. The $66.1 billion transaction, which includes some $14 billion of debt, would make Disney an even more ubiquitous content machine. With the purchase of 20th Century Fox movie and TV studios, it becomes the owner to their broad portfolio of content, including The Simpsons and the X-Men and Fantastic Four franchise. Cable networks like the National Geographic Channel and FX also in the fold. Notably, it extends Disney's global reach, with UK-based Sky TV and Star India part of the deal. Mickey & Company also doubles its stake in online streaming service Hulu, making it a majority owner.
Not only does this give us great reach globally, but if you look at the world today, consumers are consuming far more content and entertainment experiences than ever before. Quality really matters, but so does the means of access. It has to be user-friendly, it has to be navigable, it has to be accessible in frictionless ways, and we love what they've been able to do in terms of delivering content to consumers both in Europe and parts of Asia and India. We like the idea of being able to control Hulu through this acquisition. And
indeed, the end-of-year M&A comes as media companies in the U.S. have been struggling to keep a viewership, increasingly switching over to their newer digital counterparts. Companies like Netflix and Amazon are investing enormous sums into original programming, with Apple, Facebook, and Google-owned YouTube to soon follow suit. Is the force still with Bob Iger, who announced in August Disney will position itself to take their content directly to the consumer? He'll stay on as CEO until the end of 2021 if the deal closes, beyond the expiry of his current contract in July 2019.
So this is a pretty massive buyout indeed. Now, could it face any regulatory resistance? And also, how is this M&A picture in general shaping up to look like for this year?
Great questions. And, you know, the consensus right now is that because this looks like a horizontal move, there shouldn't be any major obstacles in terms of regulatory approval goes in the forefront. But the acquisition isn't expected to wrap up for another year or year and a half because it does have to go through those processes, of course. Bob Iger said in the meantime, the merging of the two companies will begin within months. Now, taking a look at the wider M&A space this year, it actually turned out to be a year of contraction, despite hopes to the contrary this time last year. According to Bloomberg, global M&A volumes so far have come to just $2.5 trillion. That is well below the more than $3 trillion logged last year and in 2015. And it does mark the slowest since 2013. Now, by region, Europe led the growth on the back of improved sentiment. Buyers have announced some $680 billion in acquisitions targeting European companies. That is up 23% from last year. Now, deal makers in the U.S. have been dampened by regulatory uncertainty, falling by nearly 30% this year. Asia remained more or less flat at $626 billion in M&A.
Now, meanwhile, it's been quite a year in ICOs, or initial coin offerings, as well.
Right. So yesterday we talked about cryptocurrencies and their net market value crossing the 500 billion won mark for the first time, effectively making it more valuable than billionaire Warren Buffett's Berkshire Hathaway. And today we are learning money raised from initial coin offerings, or ICOs, have surged past $4 billion for the first time. That is according to data provider Autonomous Research. It said the milestone represents a sharp increase from just $250 million last year. Much of that money going through tech companies, i.e. ventures that develop distributed ledgers. That's the technology behind the likes of Bitcoin and the Internet of Things. Meanwhile, a crypto transaction site, Local Bitcoin, shows that person-to-person Bitcoin transactions have seen runaway growth, especially in states that ban such transactions. P2P deals, that's person-to-person deals, soared by 200% this year in Russia and more than 1,500% in Nigeria. And what about China? It roared by 2,000%.
2,000%
this year.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for coming in today.
You bet.
And that wraps it up for today and this week. Thanks so much for watching. We'll be back next week with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. Until then, goodbye.